You're listening to the Add Water and Stir podcast with Mimi and ABM. If you are fostering, adopting, or parenting a child of color, then this podcast is for you. Welcome. Get comfortable. Take your shoes off. You're at home now. On to the show.
Welcome to the 55th episode of the Add Water and Stir podcast. I am adoptive Black mom of the blog of the same name, and I'm the adoptive mom of 15-year-old Hope.
And I'm Mimi from the blog Mimi Robinson Online, and I'm the adoptive mother of Nana, a 5-year-old little girl.
You are listening to the Add Water and Stir podcast, where we have candid conversations about fostering, adopting, and parenting children of color. Our goal is to give voice and visibility to families like ours who are often left out of the mainstream adoption conversation. Join in the conversation as we talk about the impact of race, class, and privilege on raising healthy, well-adjusted brown and Black children. Feel free to drop a question in the comments on our blog at addwaterandstirpodcast.com, or you can tweet us at AWAS pod. That's AWASPOD. So let's kick off and get into the show. Mimi, what's been going on with you?
Well, I want to talk a little bit about the beauty of play dates and the stress of having a lonely only. So Nana is an only child right now, and she's 5, which means that she always wants to play with us all the time. And I'm like, I'm an adult. I'm not your playmate. I'm
not your friend.
I mean, I want to play with you sometimes, but not all the time. And since like a child's whole world is play, like that's all they do is play. Eventually we come into conflict. So this weekend, I had a friend come over, and she came over for the morning, Saturday morning. And so all Saturday morning, they just played in their room, and they played dress up. And every once in a while they would come out and, show us their costumes and, ask for snacks and things like that. But it was amazing. It was amazing that I was able to clean up and do other things. And they were just doing their own thing, and they weren't fighting either. So that was the good thing. And I'm like, I need to do this every weekend, like every weekend, every Saturday and Sunday. I need to have something scheduled. And it was a drop off. So let me tell you about the beauty of the drop off. Now that she dropped her kid off at our house, that means I get to drop my kid off at her house and then go do things. Like, we've built this trust relationship. See, these are the things that mothers of 5-year-olds get excited about. Like, we've gotten to the point where we trust each other, so we can drop our kids off and then we can do other things. Like, I'm so excited. So that's what's been going on in my world. I have crossed over this motherhood hurdle. I have gone to the promised land of play dates, and I am never turning back. Never. So
into the land of Canaan.
Yes, I am there now. So now I just need to get like another 2, 3, 4 people on my team. Yeah, I need to get my village together where we can just start dropping our kids off, over each other's house, and just. This is great, because let me tell you why. Because up to this point, play dates have been monitored play dates, so your kids play and the parents are in the other room and we're chatting, and, that's good. It's good for developing relationships. But sometimes you want to just drop your kid off and go and do something else.
Sure.
And now we've gotten to that point, and I just need to develop that with so I can have a little rotation. And I'm really excited about this. I know I'm doing a WAP, the Cabbage Patch, so anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really freeing time. And, and frankly, I actually still am a bit jealous because my daughter still struggles a little bit socially. And so we don't have, I was expecting her to just be like, I'm going to go to the mall. I want to go to the mall, and I'll see you later or whatever. And we're not there. And so I'm eager. I got to get a squad. So I guess my big parenting win this week is that we seem to be going through a period of heightened self-awareness in our household for both me and my daughter. So, I've been really kind of trying trying to make peace with this K-pop phase. I'm just over it. And partly it's because it's not just music. If it was just music, like I'm down with that. That's cool. But it's music and TV and I'm over it. It's just all consuming and I'm just not finding it entertaining. But I took some time this weekend to really kind of think about, okay, I find this phase annoying. So what is it? What is the good part about it? What has come out of it? And I realized that I'm a lot more patient. I know when and how to keep my mouth shut. I'm not kind of verbally as impulsive as I used to be. So those are all really good things. But for Hope's part, I think that even though she's still working on mastering some skills, she is actually aware and accepting responsibility for the fact that there are skills to be mastered, skills that she hasn't mastered, skills that she needs to work on, and that there are that there's just stuff she's got to work on. And that's a really big deal for her to actually accept her role. Like so much of the last 3 years have been, this stuff is happening to me. And now I see her, even though things aren't always going her way, I see her recognizing that she actually has some responsibility in why they don't go her way. We've just got to the awareness part. We haven't gotten to the resolution or course correction.
Baby steps.
But she's actually aware and before recording I shared that she's back into, taking food and stuff. But she actually left me a note this week and said, I see what I do now. And I promise I won't go back in the box again, but I see it now. Mm-hmm. And so, even though the behaviors themselves haven't changed, the fact that she's aware and taking stock, and I'm trying to find, what am I learning and what behaviors I'm doing differently. I'm counting all of that as a win because we weren't in those spaces before. So we still got a lot of work to do, but that's a win for us.
That is a win.
So what are we talking about today?
Well, we are talking about Black History Month and Random Acts of Kindness Week. So we have two things going on this month that we want to highlight.
All right. So Black History Month is February in the United States. So that's this month. Don't worry, you get to do another Black History Month in the UK in October. So we will have a do-over. But for now, here in the US, this is a month where we really go hard on raising awareness about the contributions of African Americans and Black Americans in society. So last year, we did an episode about our own observations on how we promote Black history in our families. That's episode 35 of Add Water and Stir, if you want to go back and listen. So this year we thought we'd share some of our thoughts on the societal impact of having these kinds of cultural awareness months and holidays and how they bring meaning to our families. So, there's a lot going on this month.
So speaking about societal impact, I added this question. I said, ABM, so what did you think about Trump's remarks about Black History Month? Did you read them?
I think a better question is, what did Frederick Douglass think of Trump's remarks?
He loved them. He loved that he got a shout out from Trump, and that Trump realizes that he's doing great things and he's going to be doing more. And
more and more. And Sean Spicer, the president's press secretary, doubled down on that and said, he's going to do more and more. And so what do I think of that? What do you think of it?
I think it's ridiculous.
You had one job, man. One job.
Well, I think it's disrespectful. You have a whole committee and crew whose job is to make sure you are prepped, who can write speeches for you, who can, help you articulate anything. And just the lack of, it's just like you just showed up and was like, oh, today is Black History Month. You need to say something. Okay, let me just speak off the top of my head. No thought put into it, no interest in it, nothing. And to me, what that does is show the rest of the world, the rest of the United States and the rest of the world that this is not something that we even have to care about.
Right. there were no activities. There was kind of a bootleg press conference. None of the Black people actually got to say anything. Like, we just kind of sat around and looked at the camera. And, you know, he actually, if you watch the clip and read the speech, you see that he's actually talking about some other things first. And I'm sure that, you know, we all do that off camera, but there were hot mics, and you know, he's not just president, but he's a pretty well-known guy and pretty familiar with the media. So he should have known that there were hot mics. And then it was kind of like oh yeah, we're here to talk about Black History Month. And that's great because Black people are cool. And then here are some Black people.
Yeah, here's Omarosa
on my right and Ben Carson on my left.
Carson, they're great.
And
like
they're
them.
great. They're great. They're huge. And they're winners. And then, you know, we've got this new museum, and the museum is huge and awesome. And they've got stuff in there about like Martin Luther King, and that's cool. And we're gonna learn
this
more.
Dude Frederick Douglass, they got some stuff for him too.
They got some stuff, and you know, and he's doing some good things, and people are learning more and more about him, and he's going to be doing more and more. And look, I kept that going as long as I could. Like, I mean, it was just so ridiculous. It just was ridiculous. And you know, I'm trying to moderate some of my public criticism, but I'm like, dude, you and your staff had one job. Like, I mean, you got a lot of things going on, but that's why you have social secretaries and why you have people to pull this together. And I mean, and if it doesn't matter to you, that's one thing. Because I mean, I can certainly question the veracity of whether or not he thinks it's an important thing to observe. But like, write a decent speech, read a decent speech, glad hand, bring some additional Black people if you know some, and like,
or invite them,
you know, and invite them, and not just like entertainers or conservative ministers or people from your administration, but real people in DC, especially. I mean, this is considered a chocolate city here, and there's just no reason for it. There's just no reason for it. And to me, it just really was indicative of not only a lack of respect, but a lack of real preparation with this administration. I mean, I know that we can talk about the glory days of having an African-American first family and all of the cool things that they did for all of these awareness months and stuff. But like, come on, this was the first one. One job.
And I think this, again, goes back to model setting. Regardless of how we feel about the current president, he still is the president of the United States, and he sets the model for how other people can feel about things, how people can act. And if you don't feel like it's important enough to put any thought into it, you don't feel like it's important enough to prepare or to honor or to have any initiative around it, why should anybody else? And we have so little, you know, in terms of that. Yeah. I mean, I understand it, and maybe that's better that you just know the truth of how people feel about you, but I did not appreciate it. So
I almost wish that there had just not been anything. Yeah.
I'd rather you have just not said anything.
Right. Don't say anything, or do something mid-month when you have a little bit more time to kind of get your life together. But it just, anyway.
And then you had a breakfast. Okay. Anyway.
Yeah. Let's get, because I could go on and on. Like, break it down minute by minute, blow by blow. So, Mimi, what are you guys doing over in your household for Black History Month?
You know, as we were preparing for this, I was like, ooh, I kind of felt bad because I have nothing to report. We have not done anything specifically so far for Black History Month. And I think what it told me is, like, perhaps as Black families, sometimes we take it for granted that our children will just get to know Black history through some kind of osmosis of just being around us, right? And and also, that they'll pick it up from different places. But like we just talked about, that may be on the little bit that was in place. Unless, but this is not a political, this actually is not a political show, but it's almost like we have to talk about politics in order to talk about raising healthy brown and black children, because now we just have gotten AWAS as Secretary of Education, and the limited amount that we have around Black history might even be less than what we currently have. So now it's almost like I have to be very intentional around what I teach Nana in terms of Black History Month. I did want to talk about taking her to this group called One Struggle. And it's a grassroots advocacy group that's working to connect those in our city that are fighting Black oppression. Oh. And it was really interesting. It wasn't a lot of children there. I thought about, should I take her there or not? Because I know they're going to be talking about things that she really hasn't been introduced to. I'll be honest with you. She's in a little bit of a bubble. She goes to a diverse school. Most of our friend group is Black, but she's the only little Black girl in her class. There are other Black boys. So she's kind of in this strange place where she hears her mother listening to podcasts all the time about Black people, but not necessarily talking to her directly about Black people. And I'm still kind of struggling with how much to talk to her about it, how much to make very plain to her versus kind of giving her a little bit more time. She's only 5, so she wasn't paying attention to everything, but she is starting to get familiar with some of the things that they're talking about when they talk about police tactics and they talk about gentrification. These words she's hearing, she doesn't understand all of it, but I do want her to start to absorbing some of that. And I don't want that to be all of her Black history, but I want her to understand, context. Yeah. What about you? What are you doing for Black History Month?
Well, we are 8 days into the month, and half of these days I've been on the road. So, and I'm actually leaving again tomorrow. So I'm traveling a lot. And so we really haven't done anything yet, because when I am home, I'm packing lunches and I'm in the office and crawling into bed. So, so we haven't done anything specifically yet, but this is my last trip. So hopefully we'll do something. But, I've been pretty honest about the fact that these are things that we talk about pretty frequently, and that these months and holidays, like Black History Month, they provide some special opportunities to take kids to programming and do specific things. Like taking your daughter to One Struggle and those kinds of things. But I guess for me, one of the challenges, and I think you alluded to this earlier with us kind of taking some of these things for granted, is that if we're only kind of doing some of these observations during whatever Awareness Month or Black History Awareness Month, then they're done in isolation and there's no integration throughout kind of, the year or the lifespan of kind of your child and having that contextual piece. So I'm a big fan of believing that Black History Month is every month, every day. Talk about stuff all the time. This is, multiculturalism, diversity, pluralism is a core value at CASA ABM. Like it just is. And so even though we're not doing as much, I'm trying to find creative ways of raising issues with her. And so one of the things that we're talking about is, where are the Black people in K-pop? Are there any Black people in K-pop? What is life like for people of color in Korea, which is a pretty homogenous society? So what does that look like? And what does that feel like? Because Hope is now talking about, well, maybe I'll learn Korean so well that I can be an interpreter, and maybe I'll move there. And like, what would that be like? And I'm like, okay, well, let's look for, blogs by Blasians.
Right.
Black Asians, or, what do expats who live in Korea experience, and what do they feel like, and how, what are some of the great things and what are some of the challenges. And so those are kind of, rather than kind of Black History Month, but like, what does the future look like for you as a person of color? So that's kind of what we're doing. There's a lot of stuff going on in DC. Of course, there's a lot of stuff going on at the new museum, the African American History Museum here. And there's a lot of cool online things. So when I get back from my next trip in a couple of days, we'll start our usual run-of-the-mill edutainment endeavors. But I did want to comment one other thing that you mentioned. This kind of like, this is not a political podcast, but I don't think that we can talk about raising kids of color separate from political context. As well as class and privilege. I think that they are all kind of so tightly intertwined, at least in the US, but I mean, in probably other places too. But I think that, we have a history, a legacy of political activities that have deeply affected people of color in this country. And in order for us to talk about raising healthy, well-adjusted kids, frankly, that is a political act.
And I agree with you. I just, when I look back on the history of our content, I don't think we've talked about politics as much as we have. on
the last 3 episodes.
Well, this whole last year in terms of, the race and all this other stuff. And so I think we're starting to see, or at least connect it more into what that means for our children, because now we're seeing the very direct impact. Before we saw it too, but now it's so in your face, that we don't have a choice but to talk about how these changes and how these appointments and how these policies are going to affect our children in the future.
Yeah.
So the other thing I want to point out is that a lot of times with these months, you had mentioned before about the, the cultural type of things that people do, the clothes, the food, and what was the term that you used?
Food, fabric, and festivals.
Yes, food, fabric, and festivals, and we do that. And I really would like to make any type of month that we celebrate more than just kind of flashcards and festivals and a trip to the museum and things like that. So I did find this article on Parent University. Actually, it came out from Grand Rapids Public Schools talking about ways to celebrate Black History Month. But I really think you could do this with any month that you want to highlight for your children. So one of probably the easiest ways that I think at the age that Nana is reading some books. And there are so many, and we can pull some lists of books that are specific to Black History Month that are age appropriate, that you can read to your kids and incorporate that into your nightly routine if you have one. So this one is kind of a weird one though. It said feed your soul. So it says preparing dishes that are true to African American heritage is an appetizing way to experience Black history. I kind of felt a little some way about that. I don't know. I guess there are things that we call soul food.
I mean, if we're talking about macaroni and cheese, okay, like maybe, but
it doesn't feel right for me to for like, I can't imagine like a transracial family saying, hey, let's make some greens and something just doesn't feel right about that. Like, we're going to make some greens and we're going to make some black eyed peas to celebrate Black History Month. I don't know what to say about that. It just does not feel like that's a appropriate way, or just, I'm struggling because I don't know how to articulate my feelings about that. I don't want it to get to, I don't want it to imitate that that's the only food that we eat.
Yeah. Right.
And so something about that doesn't feel like the right way to celebrate. All
Yeah.
right.
So, I mean, I have a couple of things. I'm a big fan of TED Talks.
Mhm.
So if you have kids that are a bit older, you can certainly do some of the shorter TED Talks on TED.com. And on YouTube, you can find playlists that really kind of talk about Black experience here and around the world. And so those are some really great opportunities. And on our Facebook page, YouTube also has some amazing short 3 or 4 minute videos of different figures in Black history. They're cartoons and they show a bit about their biography and their history and kind of what they did. And they're just cute. So, you know.
Yeah, speaking of that, I found something by Vocabulary. They actually do a lot of different topics, but they do have topics about different figures during Black History Month. And what they do is put their story to music.
Oh, cool.
And so it's actually kind of cool. And I was like, I wish they had a recording because I know for Nana, she remembers things through music. We sing all the time. And so that would be another way to kind of incorporate it. So it's not just flashcards and random, like here, coloring book pages. Another thing that I think is interesting, I think that Nana and I can do and other people can do is about the seeking out elderly friends or relatives. One time I took Nana to a museum and gave her a camera and let her just take pictures of things that she found interesting. Of course, she was 4, and so she was little, so you just get the bottom half of a painting or something. But still, she loved it. It was fun. But I think we can do that again because they do have different artifacts in the museums right now. Also, she likes to video things. She likes to take videos of me and her dad, and I think it would be good for her to interview her grandmother or her grandparents. And you know, that's Black history too. My mother grew up in a very different time than what I grew up, and her opportunities and the way she interpreted what was available to her was very limited. And so she has a story to tell that's, you know, I can't, you know, even reading a book won't be able to give it to you in the same way. And so I think that's another way. She's only 5 and she'll just love to videotape, but it's another way for her to hear, you know, a story. And I think that's something that children of all ages could do.
Absolutely. You're making me kind of wish I had videoed the parts of conversations that we had. Hope and I went to go visit my parents this weekend, and in the issue, in the for the sake of transparency, my parents are really struggling with politics right now. But I mean, I think that they grew up in an era of segregation. And my mother integrated her high school.
Oh, wow.
Ninth grader.
She has a whole story to tell.
She's got a big story to tell. And she was one of only 4 Black students at her school for 4 years. And, you know, that experience has really shaped her. She's 65 now. And, you know, she is a lot more forthcoming about that experience now than she ever was when I was growing up. And so she shared a lot of things this weekend as we were just kind of talking about what's going on in the US. And, you know, and Hope was there kind of taking it all in because, you know, even older kids are sponges. And so, you know, make sure that you have those opportunities to have your kids listen to someone, not just talk to them, but just really kind of practice listening, active listening skills, but really kind of hear people's stories. And again, as we mentioned on the last podcast, this is something for your whole family. This isn't like, just let me just take my brown kid. This is something that all of us, regardless of color, should be doing and learning more and more about the contributions of different kinds of people in this country. Happy Black History Month. Happy
Black History Month. And Black history happens every day. So
all day, every day. You know, just ask our good friend Frederick.
Who's still making history.
So why don't we move on to our second segment?
Yes.
All right. So, and going back to this large calendar of events that happens around the world, this coming week is Random Acts of Kindness Week in the US. And so I kind of wanted to spend a few minutes talking about random acts of kindness because I think that's a really cool thing. I'd had no idea that there was a whole week just devoted to celebrating random acts of kindness. And so, of course, these are good things to do. You pay for the person's coffee behind you, or, you put some money on the what drive-through thing for the next person, and you hear some of these stories about how it goes on and on all day. And
they happened to me, actually.
Yeah,
One day I did.
That. Yeah,
I went to Chick-fil-A and somebody had paid for my meal, but then I kind of felt like I need to pay for the next person. I was like, I don't want to be the one person like, well,
thanks.
Because I asked how long it's been going on. He was like, oh, it's been going on for a while. And I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Here's my $5. I don't want to be the one to break the chain. But I mean, those things are really cool, and they make news because they are feel-good stories when you need to hear feel-good stories. So I like this idea that next week is Random Acts of Kindness Week. Before we came on air, Mimi and I were talking about, is it random for the person who receives the random gift, or do you really need to sit down and think about and be mindful about planning doing a random act of kindness? And if you do, is that still random?
Well, so I think that for some people, kindness is not necessarily an everyday thing,
Yo, meanie.
Let me rephrase that, because it didn't sound right. But when I mean randomly acting kindly towards others in a specific way, people open the doors for people and do things like that, but actually going out your way to do something that actually has an impact on them, I think you have to be mindful of it, right? You do have to, kind of think, I do want to be intentional in how I deal with people today. And that's how you get some of these random acts of kindness. How is it random for you? You're paying for your Starbucks and you're like, you know what? Let me just go ahead and give $5 to the next person. You intentionally felt like you wanted to do that. I felt like you had to be mindful in doing that.
Yeah. Okay. I can dig that. So really what we're talking about is not so much the planning, but really bringing it back for being intentional and mindful about your life and kind of how you want to live. And some of that is a demonstration, and that is reflected in a demonstration of kindness to others.
Yeah, and I feel like there are things that people do that are outside the norm. There are social kindness and expectations, like opening doors for people. We expect people to do that, but we don't always expect people to pay things forward in that way, or to buy something and give it. We pass people all the time who are in need and walk right past them. And so, again, that's an intentionality that this week, I'm going to focus on looking for ways where I can go out of my way to do that. And there's a reason to do that. There's an article that you brought up about the 5 side effects of kindness.
Yeah.
And this was written by David Hamilton, Dr. David Hamilton. And he says it makes us happier because we're tapping into something deep and profound inside of us that says, this is who I am, or at least this is who I want to be.
Who I aspire to be. Yeah.
I want to be that. And I think, having this week of doing that is a way to kind of reintroduce that to ourselves, because sometimes we can get into that humdrum way of just living our life and focusing on ourselves and our family. And having a week set out specifically to do that reintroduces, makes us use that muscle that we might not always be using.
One of the things that I don't know if listeners saw your Facebook post maybe about a week ago or something, and you were talking about kind of this living and immersing yourself in petty, and how destructive, frankly, that can be, because it really pulls you down. It pulls the people around you down. This idea of dragging, while somewhat internet wide is amusing, is really kind of destructive behavior. And I think that this is a really this random act of kindness week is a wonderful opportunity to be an antidote to that.
That's a good point.
There you go. See?
I love how you brought that back around.
See what I did there?
I did.
So Dr. Hamilton also says that kindness is good for your heart. And so there's this kind of physical reaction and secretion of oxytocin. Oxytocin is what it is. So, which is kind of our natural like feel good drug, and so that helps us to feel good. It actually dilates blood vessels and makes our blood pressure go down, and is good for it's actually good for not just our like cutesy heart version, like Valentine heart, but our physical heart as well. And so this is doing an act of kindness is a little bit of exercise.
That's a way to put it. But, I just kind of liked it for the fact that you said that's our like little happy drug. I was like, well, I feel like you should just be kind all the time. It's going to release a little happy drug. Need to try this a little more.
Well, then you're really like his number 3. It reduces kindness, also reduces aging, and like it apparently slows and reduces the levels of free radicals and inflammation. And so it slows aging at the source. Check it. And so as much as we so that's, on the inside and the outside. And as much as we love to say that, Black don't crack, all of us kind of, are looking for magic pills to dab around the eyes and smooth that skin. And,
So what does that really say? Maybe Black people are just really kind.
Hello. That's our positive way.
Message.
That's our positive way of saying it. It also sadly means that some of y'all need to step your kindness game up because of a reduced level of melanin.
Oh my gosh. So kindness also improves relationships. So, we like people who are nice to us and that show us kindness. So the more you're kind to people, the more that you can strengthen that bond. And we feel a good connection between people that are kind to us and that we're kind in return to. So for those who are looking, a lot of times, especially in parenting, we're looking for those connections. And so the best way to kind of jumpstart those connections is to try some random acts of kindness.
Yeah, good deal. Awesome.
Like letting people drop your kids off at your house. That's random.
That is random. Okay, don't randomly drop your kid. Oh boy. Dr. Hamilton's last point on his 5 side effects of kindness is that kindness is contagious, which is one of those why, the act of giving to the person behind you might, that pay it forward goes on and on and on all day. But, in the article that we'll post, he talks about this paying it forward in the donation of an organ. And actually there was I think a Story Shorts episode that I listened to last year that talked about someone donating an organ and how that triggered a long chain of 50 people coming off of an organ donation list because it freed up another organ for someone else that freed up another organ for someone else. And so, even if you don't see the immediate kind of feel good benefit, know that paying it forward really does impact people's lives in ways that you have no idea what that chain might look like.
Kindness is contagious.
So I'd like to issue a challenge for the rest of Black History Month.
Challenge.
I would challenge our listeners and their friends and family to practice that mindfulness and the intent of doing random acts of kindness for people who are entirely different from them. not just within your circle, but step out.
All right. I love that challenge.
So that's my challenge for the month.
I accept your challenge.
Dig it.
So, what's the time now? It's time for the wind down. And we were trying to figure out what are we going to talk about during the wind down. But ABM has an announcement. Tell everybody.
Something magical happened this weekend. What, you might ask?
What? What is it?
Aretha Franklin followed me on Twitter.
What? The real Aretha Franklin?
The real Aretha Franklin followed me on Twitter. I know this is like a kind of dumb thing, but I don't really care, because if you listen to us way back when, you know that I am here for Aretha. I'm here for when she's shady. I'm here for like wearing that fur coat, those hats, like those not quite supported strapless dresses.
The way she wears her arms out and does not care.
No cares in the world. I love her. And I was like just kind of minding my own business, lounging at my parents' house this weekend. And I was like, oh, let me kind of go on Twitter, because they were kind of roasting and dragging Sean Spicer after Melissa McCarthy's SNL skit on him this weekend. And I was like, I'd love to know what kind of the folks on Twitter are saying. So I'm scrolling, and I look at my notifications and I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God. Which my parents go, what? Like, what are you talking about? And so, I tell them, and of course my dad, bless his heart, he's almost 70, was like, so exactly what is Twitter? That's not important right now. That's not important right now. Aretha Franklin followed me on Twitter. So that's kind of like my little wind down thing. I have visions of us in less than supportive undergarments, wearing fashionable clothes, going and throwing shade,
tweeting each other in the DMs,
each other, and then sliding into the DMs and talking about apparently Cissy Houston. Like this is my new fantasy. This is my new fantasy. I want to tweet her. So I've got to find something cool to tweet her.
I think you should tweet her. I think you should, at least say thanks for following me.
Yes. Well, I did that.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I did that. And then I got the obligatory, like, she slid into my DMs with the obligatory, like, response message. Like, I was like, thank you for following Aretha Franklin, blah, 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 whatever,
Okay, so what kind of things does she tweet?
So she doesn't seem to tweet much, which is why I was also like,
oh, so you're special.
I am special. I am so like, I can't even tell you how lit I was. So she only follows 665 people. So apparently she just started this account. So I don't know what's going on, but it is her official account because it's linked to her website and everything. But she doesn't she just kind of tweets about her music. Please see her Facebook page. She was hanging out with Philip Bailey and Verdine from Earth, Wind and Fire.
Oh, okay.
At the Trumpet Awards, and respect. Yeah. So apparently she just got on Twitter. Oh, look at that. And so I was one of the first people that she followed.
How do you know that?
Well, I mean, out of a famous person who's only following 665 people. I'm counting myself amongst the first.
Okay. That sounds good, girl.
Anyway, it makes me feel good about myself. So
I think you should.
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. Nope, she's not new. She just followed me, because all of these tweets are from. Okay, so you didn't wreck my high. She ain't tweeted since.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just asked what you.
I don't care.
Send some shady tweets. I want to know if she.
I'm well, but you know what? If she's not tweeting that much, then maybe we really can be friends. So now I'm gonna slide into her DMs.
Okay.
I'm gonna send her some clips from when I was talking about her on our early shows. And my love for her.
Well, all hail ABM, who has now reached celebrity status. She hanging out with the Queen of Soul. And so there
Yeah.
you go.
All right.
I'm happy for you.
Thank you. It's
So
kind of weak wind down. But I'm happy.
Hey, wind it up. So we have an announcement. You ready to talk about this?
I am.
So Add Water and Stir podcast is going to take a break. We're taking a break to regroup and rebrand. We have really big ideas and plans for what we want to do, and we really want to make sure that the podcast is bringing you the right information and good guests and everything. But we will stop podcasting under the name Add Water and Stir at the end of February.
Oh.
But
we're coming back, right?
We are coming back. We're coming back. We have plans to come back in June. We want to take some time off to get ourselves together and come up with a new website, new podcast, new branding, new everything. But we want you to stay in touch with us. We don't want to just cut off this relationship that we've developed with you over the last, 2.5 years?
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to keep our Facebook page going for now. And you can keep in touch with us there. And you can also keep in touch with us on our blogs and our Twitter account.
So we're still around. We're just going to take a little bit of a break so that we can come back and do some amazing things for you and with you.
Bigger and better.
Yes. So I do want to kind of extend an invitation, though, that if you are interested in being a bit of a part of the process, well, I would love for you to get in touch with us through our Facebook page, or slide into our DMs on the Twitters, or email us at feedback@awaspod.com. We have a couple of things that we're interested in getting some feedback on, some focus groups and some things that we kind of have in the works. So if you are digging what we do and you're interested in being a part of what we're building next, please drop us a line.
All right. We love to hear from you. Really, we need your help because we want to make this bigger and better for you.
So, do you have any recommendations for this week?
Yeah, I do actually. So I do want to recommend that people check out flowcabulary.com. We'll put a link there. And like I mentioned, they have these videos. They're kind of like little rap songs or rhythm songs that talk about different parts of history. So they have some on Martin Luther King. They have some on George Washington Carver, Ruby Bridges. But then they also have things on transportation, Veterans Day. And they have things on different topics. But I really was pointed out for a way, to incorporate Black History Month into your lives. But they have a lot of other different videos that you can use. And it's the ones that I was looking at is recommended for grades K-5, but I think they have other things too. So yeah, they do. Geography, U.S. history, ancient world history. So if you're looking for ways to kind of get your child interested in other things, subjects that they may not be interested in, put some music to it. And Flowcabulary is a good way.
That sounds cool. I'm going to check it out and be sure to share with some of our my family's younger kiddos. So yay. So I have a couple of recommendations. One is a shameless self-promotion.
Oh, yes. As you should.
So I actually have done a 2-part series for the Donaldson Adoption Institute out of New York, being featured this month for Black History Month on their blog. And the second post in that series just dropped today. And so go on to Adoption Inst. We'll be posting a link on our Facebook page. Look up Donaldson Adoption Institute. for my 2-part series on how I became ABM and also the intersection of race, class, and privilege with myself, my daughter, and her birth family. So that's one thing. And then the second thing is definitely check out the website for the African American History Museum here in DC. They are having all kinds of really cool things. There's some videos from lectures that they've done. There's lots of things on the website that you can check out, even if you can't get to DC. And even if you could get to DC, tickets are still like the hottest thing in town. So you probably wouldn't be able to go. But surely check out the website and we'll post a link to that as well. So thank you for listening to another episode of the Add Water and Stir podcast. You can find all of the show notes at addwaterandstirpodcast.com. Subscribe and leave us ratings through iTunes, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast app. We absolutely love to engage with our audience. And you can find us on Facebook. You can email us at feedback@awaspod.com or tweet us at awaspod. Mimi, where can they find you?
You can find me on my blog at mimirobinsononline.com, or you can find me on Twitter at Mimi Complex, or you can find me on Facebook at Malika Robinson.
All right. And you can find me at my blog, adoptionblackmom.com, adoptiveblackmom.com, on Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest under the same name as well. So that's all for today. Thank you for another listen, and we will check you out next time.
All right. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Add Water and Stir podcast. We're growing our community, so please subscribe and rate us on iTunes to help other adoptive parents find us. For our show notes, check us out at addwaterandstirpodcast.com and follow us on Twitter at AWASpod for updates. See you next time.